This commentary was brought to you by a literal no metal god. So, Meta527ii, you might remember him from the last video I covered. Well, I'm actually covering him once again, but not actually on any of his full videos. Yep, we're going unique in this bitch. Occasionally, Meta will release a shitpost video where he essentially tries to get a point across through a meme. In this particular case, he uses SpongeBob clips. Both of the videos I'll be covering are both on the quote-unquote Disney hate base, and are less than 40 seconds long, so you'd think there wouldn't be much to cover, but you haven't seen nothing yet. But yeah, let's check out arguing with the Disney hate base be like, I guess.
You want proof that Disney's so good? Take it! Now you'll stop treating Disney like it's worse than Hitler, right? Wrong! That ain't good enough for me! Then have some more proof! I got plenty of it!
Okay, first of fucking all, you used Olaf Presents and Cars on the Road as good Disney products. Fucking shame on you. Jokes aside, this point feels undercooked. Like, are there people hoping that Disney goes bankrupt, or is it just something you're making up to make the people who aren't a fan of Disney nowadays look like big mean cyberbullies? Given the last video I've covered from you and how you generally seem to exaggerate what people say, excuse me for not believing that people actually want Disney to go bankrupt. But for the sake of argument, let's just go under the assumption that they do. If they still want Disney to go bankrupt, shoving the latest products in their faces isn't really going to change their mind, especially since they will likely be aware of them. And even if they aren't, these things are only subjectively good to you. You might like Encanto, but someone might not. So you trying to force that person to like Disney isn't really going to change their mind. People have different opinions on things, Meta, you should know this. Though I do gotta give you credit for including Muppets Haunted Mansion, that movie slaps. But now I move on to his other meme video regarding the Disney hate base. I did actually consider covering this in the other video, but I decided against it because I didn't really know how to make it flow well. Plus, Moroki already did commentate on this video, but I still have some things I want to say.
Don't you people hate Disney remakes? Yup.
Am I the only one put off by the fact that this video is titled Currently in the Disney Hate Base, while thumbnails of nostalgia critics, Favreau's Productions, and Cell Specs talking about the Disney live-action remakes are shown in the card? Yeah, no, totally isn't a flat-out case of fanboyism. I know Twitter will be surprised when I say this, but reviewers who make negative videos on things aren't inherently haters of the studio that made it. It's especially bad that you're using these examples because while I'm not familiar with Cell Specs, but with Doug and Shay Freelis, they actually like Disney as a whole. Shay Freelis made a whole video ranking every Disney movie, and quite a bit of the video was based on movies he likes. And Doug even has a series he does every December called Disney-cember, and again, there's quite a bit of films he liked, such as Bambi, Beauty and the Beast, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and even The Rescuers Down Under, which always gets respect from me. Yes, these videos do bring up flaws with certain movies, but that doesn't really equate to hating Disney as a whole. That's just acknowledging that these movies aren't perfect. Just because they don't like the shitty live-action remakes doesn't really mean that they hate it either. That's like saying I hate rap music just because I don't like Broken Side. Patrick, how could you?
And you can't stand the fact that they're popular enough to encourage Disney to keep making them, right? Yup.
Are you sure about that? Cause from my understanding, Disney remakes will still happen regardless of how popular one of them might be. That's because these movies are often remakes of beloved Disney properties like Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, and most recently, The Little Mermaid. The remakes would inherently get attention from brand recognition alone, so no, the remakes being popular isn't the sole thing that's driving Disney to make these remakes. They do it cause nostalgia sells.
So naturally, it should make sense that the fact that Disney keeps making remakes is partly your fault for the fact that you keep paying to see them, even when you know they're going to be bad.
Naturally, it would make sense. Well, that's quite the shame considering that your point is the polar goddamn opposite of making sense.
It's their fault because they keep paying to see them even though they know they're gonna be bad.
1, no. 2, fuck your mother. 3, you're assuming that these reviewers went in wanting to hate these remakes, which you have no substantial way of actually proving. Hell, in Doug's Disney-cember on the Dumbo remake, he actually lists off a bunch of things that he liked about the movie.
So, alright, it sounds pretty lame, and yeah, I guess it is. But there's several elements of this movie I found myself surprisingly enjoying. A lot of that comes from the atmosphere, and I know what you're thinking, it's a Tim Burton movie, he always has pretty good atmosphere, but he doesn't always. Sometimes he'll have good visuals, and hell, most of the time he'll have good visuals, but it's not always atmospheric. This one really is. Look at those backgrounds, look at the lighting, look at the reactions on these characters. Even the music by Danny Elfman I've kind of made fun of, he hasn't made that big of an impression on me lately, but this music is really great. I feel like all of this kind of comes together to create this really visual storytelling. I like how when they're trying to figure out where to put Dumbo so they try him in different jobs and stuff, Colin Farrell is going through the same thing, and because the animals don't talk, you can really see this connection between the two of them as being outcasts.
And that isn't even all the praise he gives towards the movie. Check out the rest if you're interested, link will be in the description. While you could argue that they go in pretty much expecting it to suck, I'm sure they wouldn't have minded if the movies were any good, but guess what, they are in their eyes. Good. And fourth, it's not on them for Disney making live action remakes. Like I said, the movies are essentially packaged to do well based on brand recognition, so a majority majority of the money the movie makes wouldn't come from the reviewers, it would come from normal people who watch anything Disney related. Yeah, how is this shit supposed to make sense?
So that's why instead of talking about how horrible Disney is and how much you wish they would go bankrupt,
something that I don't believe any of them have ever said, but please, continue shoving words in their mouth.
you should simply just not watch the remakes. And if you don't watch them, Disney will have less of a reason to make these remakes that you hate so much.
Uh-huh. I see. Tell me, Meta, if all we have to do to get Disney to stop making live-action remakes is to not watch them, explain why I, someone who hasn't watched a single one of them aside from the 2010 Alice in Wonderland remake, but I don't really know if that counts, Disney still wants to remake movies like Moana, Hercules, and Snow White among probably many others. That's right, because just not watching something doesn't mean they'll have less of a reason. Disney is a company worth well over $1 million at this point. I think they have enough money to make another live-action remake if one didn't do well. You make it seem like the remake spree has a simple solution to it, which, I'm sorry, is not the fucking case.
That makes sense to me. Then don't watch them. Sorry, but we're going to watch them because we love complaining.
The Darker Side of Nonsense Track 3. Meta, aren't you technically complaining yourself? Think about it, both this and the other video I covered, which is actually the most recent video on your channel at the time of scripting, were essentially complaining about people having pretty cold takes on current Disney. And the fact that your only response to them was, well, there's good things I like sometimes, and don't watch, Claude. Excuse me for believing these videos were done out of pettiness over someone not liking something that you do. And we'll end the video off here. Meta, I know that these videos are meant to be more of memes rather than full-on videos regarding these opinions, but, like, there's one thing. You forgot the funny! These memes didn't really have any humor factor to them. Both of them were just arguments and stances that you made up to make yourself look like the intellectual one. Yeah, you know what that is, Meta? It's called a fucking straw man. You make up over-exaggerated criticisms of Disney that I highly doubt people actually believe, and guess what? That's pretty much the issue I had with the last video I covered from you, where you came up with shit based on your skewed views of the people who don't share your opinions. Here's some advice. Instead of trying to come up with reasons why people don't like something, you could actually see why they feel the way they do about it. Avant-garde concept, I know, but it definitely makes you look a lot less biased. So moral of the story is, if your video doesn't have any substance, don't make it. Listen to Cold Chamber instead.